amount is paid for the item, and the taxes, and the service fee, and the delivery fee, and the small order fee, and the expanded range fee, and the bank fee, and of course, that tip for the delivery person. What's 10% or 15% or heck, 40% of $13.75? Oh, you're back at the SATs, except this time if you fumble those figures, your ham and cheese burrito will take an eternity to arrive. It will be as cold as heck, and depending on the mood of the delivery dasher, there may or may not be spit on it. Good evening, everyone. If you've ever interacted with a server, bellhop, parking attendant, nail salon worker, car washer, or food delivery person, you've probably profusely pondered about that infamous little percentage of cash at the end of the service. And while it may feel like a friendly gesture, 83% of Canadians believe that too many places are asking for too many tips. With inflation lingering around, what was once adequate is now a question of affordability. That's why today, I'm going to explain the pressing issues of tipping culture in our society, as well as tip you off with some solutions to improve the service sector. Fun fact, tip, T-I-P, literally stands for to ensure promptness. It's a gratuity given by customers to certain service sector workers on top of the basic price of the service. Though it is a big part of North American culture, it's not so popular abroad. In Europe, tipping is literally chucking a few leftover cents at a server, and in Japan, Korea, and China, tipping is even considered insulting, saying, "Your job sucks and you suck at it even more. Here's some extra cash to keep your miserable life afloat." So why is it that in North America we are tired of tipping? Tipflation. Tipflation is the widespread expansion of both tipping more and tipping more often. It started during the pandemic, where frontline workers and businesses who struggled to stay afloat were helped by empathetic people paying more tips. However, this kind-hearted action soon became the norm, with more and more industries demanding higher gratuities. On top of that, menacing pre-enter tip screens mean not only is the service worker watching you, not only is everyone in line watching you, but deciding to select that barely visible no-tip button prompts the blasting of a cacophonous beep, kindly letting everyone in the room know that you are a horrible human being. The point is that we are tired of tipping. Study after study indicates that Canadians are frustrated with the new normal of 20%. I feel you. We are tired of tipping and we have to change. Wait, what's that? Over 7 million workers across Canada and the US are denied fair wages. Maybe we have to look at what tipping actually costs, not just the 20% we pay at the tip. Tipping started off with a dark history which began after the Civil War. You see, racist white employers would exploit newly freed black workers, paying them a whopping $0 an hour, with the justification that they might earn some tips if they just worked hard enough. However, today we have a minimum wage, right? Actually, in the US, the federal government, along with 43 states, legally allows tipped workers to earn a sub-minimum wage as low as $2.13 an hour. $2.13, a figure that's been frozen for over 30 years. And even after accounting for tips, these workers earn wages that fall in the bottom quartile of all US wage earners. And so a country that once enslaved black people perpetuates its racist legacy, paying a tipped workforce that is over 70% female with a disproportionate number of black women, less than 1/3 of the minimum wage. And you still wonder why there's a gender and racial pay gap. Okay, so that's the United States. Surely Canada can live up to better expectations. Actually, though Canada has abolished the sub-minimum wage as of last year, did you know to afford to comfortably rent a one-bedroom apartment in the city of Vancouver, you would have to make $100,000 per year? And did you know that minimum wage workers in BC are earning less than $35,000 per year? You see, the minimum wage is not the livable wage. Tips are literally being used by the government and the employers as a substitute for paying workers fair, livable wages. And when workers are forced to hinge their entire income on gambling about the amount of tips they will make, a few problems arise. Firstly, you may believe a higher quality of service will bring about a higher percentage tip, which can motivate workers to work harder. Wait, that's a lie. Studies indicate that tipping has virtually nothing to do with the quality of service, but rather based on discrimination and arbitrary factors like age, sex, and race. Blondes get tipped more than brunettes, white cab drivers more than black cab drivers, large-breasted women more than smaller-breasted women. During COVID, servers who wore masks to literally protect themselves and others constantly received fewer tips than ones who worked without a mask. However, arbitrary factors and luck also come into play. A server's ability to pay rent shouldn't rely on the weather, or the frequency in which they touch their guests, or the noise level in the restaurant, all of which are factors that contribute to the tip amount left by a customer. Tipping is clearly the most inequitable and corrupt way of paying staff. Next, tipped workers are forced to put up with rude customers and harassment, since their incomes depend on the happiness of the people they serve. They must absorb insults and indulge intolerable circumstances every single day, or they won't get paid. As a result, customers are increasingly feeling like they have the right to abuse their servers. In fact, the restaurant industry, which contains disproportionately women of color, generates 5 times the number of sexual harassment claims per worker. And remember, those are just the abuses that get reported. But that's not all. Tipped workers also must forge a good relationship with their employers because they get to determine which shifts you're allocated to. If you keep your mouth shut, you're deemed easy to work with and given the prime Friday night shift, generating top-tier tips. If you complain about how you're being treated, good luck with the dull Wednesday morning shift. Moreover, employers possess the power to determine where you work. Through discriminatory hiring practices, white servers end up in more popular high-tech restaurants, while minorities are segregated into more casual restaurants where they earn on average $5 an hour less than tipped white men. However, discrimination goes both ways. Tipped workers are prompted to adjust their quality of service according to who they think will tip more. People dressed in business attire are likely to tip more than casually dressed people. Couples more than large groups, and apparently white males are likely to tip the most. So before you even sit down at your table, your quality of service is already determined by what you look like and who you are with. Through these problems of arbitrary tipping, harassment, unethical employment power, and customer discrimination, it is clear that tipping is an assault on fairness where workers have to play the lottery for their wages. Tipping culture has reached a tipping point, and so we must tip over the system and start somewhere new. First, we have to get rid of the sub-minimum wage where it currently exists. 18% of servers in sub-minimum wage states live in poverty, while only 10% of them do in non-sub-minimum wage states. However, this change alone is not enough. Across North America, we have to raise the minimum wage to the livable wage. It shouldn't be my responsibility to make strenuously ridiculous math calculations to pay 7 million workers and hinder my budgeting plans. It should instead be the obligation of the governments and the employers. In countries like Australia, servers start at an average of $28 an hour, so it's no wonder they're able to sustain themselves in the profession. Once workers have the base wages they need, tipping culture will die out. However, won't raising wages cause basic service prices like the cost of food to rise dramatically for consumers? Won't the extra cost for employers bring about the layoff of workers? Says the business groups, in particular the restaurant industry. Actually, a study of more than 1,000 restaurant employers found that implementing higher base wages cut turnover rates in half, which subsequently reduced training and recruitment costs. This meant that workers were on the job for longer and were financially stable, which increased productivity and boosted morale, which in turn meant better customer service, meaning customers were more likely to come back to the restaurant. On top of all of that, more money in the pockets of workers boost local economies, including the ones they themselves work in, such as restaurants. And so we have to advocate to raise the minimum wage to the livable wage. Vote with their dollars. If word on the street is an employer isn't paying a fair wage, don't go there. We have agency. If you're tired of exorbitant tips and underpaid staff and discriminatory service, stop going there until they make a change. Just stop going. Yes, you might miss out on your beloved burritos, but trust me, there are plenty of other delicious options out there. All in all, you can see that the tipping culture on the surface may seem problematic because of tipflation. In reality, it foreshadows the structural issues in our society, the rift between the minimum wage and the livable wage. As my speech comes to an end, I really hope you have listened carefully, jotted down what you have learned and what you think I could improve on, and are ready to offer me some tips. Not tips on how to be a better speaker. I mean, literally, tip me 37%, or I'm coming to tip